We do like to know for the record, typically we do sign-ins and can have a record of who was at the meeting. I see the one phone number, if someone wanted to let us know who the number that ends in 6-3 is. I don't know if you're willing to do that for us.
Hey, Dave, it's Ashley with the Leader Herald.
Hi, Ashley. Welcome. I was guessing that it was probably you, but if it wasn't, I'm wondering who else it would be. So we're right at 5 o'clock, Dr. Brooks.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another meeting under
New
a variety of
season,
here. Those of you who are at home, welcome. Those of you who are there, I'm looking forward to the day when we can all be there. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it
stands one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
I'd like to receive a motion to approve the agenda as presented and to add the items introduced by unanimous vote.
So move.
Second. Does anyone have any additions, deletions, or suggestions regarding the agenda for tonight's meeting? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries. The next item is the adoption of the minutes of the board meeting of December 9, and it's recommended that the board approve the board minutes for the meeting of December 9, 2020, which was a regular board meeting. I have a motion, please.
Make the motion.
Alan? Second? Jane?
Yes.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor of adopting these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The board minutes are approved. Dave, would you do the pleasure of introducing our guests as the first part of our program tonight?
Sure. I'm actually going to end up turning it over to Jay, but just as a recap, we've discussed getting back to the practice of bringing in updates for different programs and services we provide to ensure the board stays abreast of the work we're doing. And it's also an avenue to meet some new folks, or maybe folks that aren't new to the organization, but the board has not had any interaction with before. So tonight we invited, they're not new to our organization, but they're new to their roles this year. Christine Carriotto as the principal at Adirondack Academy, and Brian Garrity, who has been teaching in the alternative school, has now become the administrative coordinator at Adirondack Academy. But I'll turn it over to Jay. The bulk of his report is student program support centers around Adirondack Academy tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to have Brian and Chris with us today. I'm very proud of the work they have done in a very short period of time to look at the program. They have some new ideas and new directions for where ADK is headed. They are working closely with their staff and also with our component school districts, starting this week and last week, I believe, meeting with school administrators. So I thought it'd be great for them to share with you the work that they've done thus far and where the program is headed. They've also shared this information with our superintendents in a recent conversation, so they're aware of where ADK is going. So very proud of the work and very pleased with what they've done in this short period of time. So Chris and Brian, welcome, and it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Carriotto. We met a couple of years ago. So that was actually in person. It's kind of nice to see people in person. It's a strange new world we're in, and I hope it changes soon. But thank you for taking the time to meet with us. Like Jay said, we have really spent a lot of time creating a program that is promoting both academic success and social competence, and are really proud of some of the progress we've made. So I'm going to have Brian kind of take over and talk a little bit about the vision. I know you guys were given, at least I believe you guys were given some information prior, so I'm not going to read through it. We're going to basically just do some snapshots and leave a little bit of time at the end if you have any questions or need some clarification. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. So one of the things that we're working on at Adirondack Academy is educating the whole student. And not just academically, but like Chris mentioned, just helping them gain some social and emotional competence. And one way that we're doing that is through Therapeutic Crisis and Intervention in Schools program. Most of our staff has been trained in that to a certain degree. And the idea behind it is that we can prevent crisis from happening. We can de-escalate them rather quickly when they do happen, and really it's about managing those acute crises when they occur and keeping the staff and students as safe as possible. One of the goals of it is to eventually get the students to a point where they can regulate their own behavior, so they could self-regulate, and they don't need as much of assistance from the staff, and they're actually able to manage their behaviors on their own.
So
Chris?
thanks. That's one of the supports that we have in place. I'm going to just go over some of the other supports that we've implemented basically to assist our students in reaching their highest potential, which is what we all want, right? So last year, I think most of you know, we started a quarterly schedule, and this quarterly schedule has been a huge asset to our population. It's provided the opportunity for our students to essentially focus on 2 core subject areas for 10 weeks, obviously each quarter, and earn 2 credits each quarter, which allows them to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So when you're talking about alt-ed kids, you really want to get that carrot that's able to hook them in. And this has been a carrot that has done a nice job hooking them in. Another thing that we have implemented this year, we were able to create a new position, a behavior specialist. And this behavior specialist has allowed us opportunities to create different teams to work with individual students, essentially creating a plan for every student in our program. So every student now has a plan that either addresses their behavioral needs, their academic needs, or both. And we're able to utilize data from these plans to address which direction we move from there. We have implemented an attendance committee. Our population has struggled with excellent attendance, and COVID has not been a friend to that. So we have created an attendance committee that it's basically, I love flow charts. So it's a flow chart of a direction that we had to ensure that our teachers are contacting the families and the students daily if they're not there, creating meetings with the school districts, really reaching out and, just making those connections with everybody and doing what we can to get the kids in school and on task. We have also begun a PBIS initiative this year. So that is a work in progress, and it's working great. We have a partnership with St. Anne Institute. They're located in Albany, and we have a care manager that St. Anne Institute has hired, and we allow a space in our building, and they work with our students and the students' families. That's been a huge asset, again, especially throughout this pandemic. They're allowed to do things that we are not necessarily able to do as educators.
Christine, can
Yes.
you just give an explanation for anyone that isn't aware of the acronym PBIS and what the idea is behind that program?
Yeah, so PBIS is a positive behavior intervention system, and it essentially addresses situations in a positive manner. So we're looking at rewarding positive behaviors as opposed to punishing negative behaviors. In a very short nutshell, does anybody? Okay. All right, thank you. Certainly, I apologize. We had the opportunity this year to work with Dave Levitt, who has been another huge asset. I just feel really lucky this year. We've had so many opportunities. He's been a consultant working with us to help guide us in different directions. He's been a great ear for us. He's got a lot of experience with alt-ed, has a lot of experience with what works, what hasn't worked, and he's been able to provide some insight into some of the direction that our protocols have been headed, which has been great. We are going to next year be delving into SREB to incorporate literacy throughout our entire program. So we're going to be incorporating literacy throughout all content areas. It's going to be our focus, Adirondack Academy's focus, whoever would have thought. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I think that's a big nutshell of everything. There's a lot.
And just to add on to what Chris said, she had talked about communication with the home districts. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to improve and foster better communication with them. We've gotten some feedback from the attendance meetings, and the districts are very, very happy with the way we're communicating with them about their students who are at risk. And another way we're going to go about doing that is we have scheduled meetings to explain our vision of what Adirondack Academy is going to look like moving forward. And we have our first 2 meetings scheduled tomorrow with a few of the districts, and then the rest of them will follow in the next few weeks as well.
It's really exciting, and thank you for your support in this. Does anybody have any questions or want some clarification about everything we just threw at you?
I was wondering, you explained you have a behavior specialist and some other support staff that is on site, but what do you provide for the teachers to coordinate with all of that for their development and their abilities?
So the teachers are provided a variety of opportunities. Tara actually is right here, our instructional service person. Thank you for bringing this up, because we also have an instructional service person come on a weekly basis. So she's with us for a week, and she's working with our teachers individually on standards, incorporating standards into their lessons, ensuring that the standards are being hit, and helping the teachers honestly with a lot of the COVID brought to us a brand new world, and some of our teachers really struggled initially with how to get their academic message out virtually. So Kim, who has been working with us through instructional services as an instructional coach, has been able to help work with our staff on different platforms that will be able to reach our students, how to create videos, how to splice videos, how to ensure that the standards are met both in the classroom when they're teaching directly, and how to ensure the standards are being met when they're teaching remotely. And we also have a hybrid version. So we have some kids who come half of the time in school and half of the time they're learning remotely. So how do we make sure that we're making sure that these students are learning everything that they need to learn? So that's one area.
And additionally, we have our behavioral specialist, our school psychologist, and Chris and I as well. We're very active in the school and in the classrooms. So the teachers have constant support with us. We're continually talking with them about classroom management strategies, about incorporating more rigor into the classrooms. And the only way you could truly do that is if you're in the classrooms with them, and we are with them pretty regularly.
We work very well with each other. We really advocate for empowering the teachers to do what is theirs, and they're very comfortable coming to us and talking to us right now, which has happened a handful of times about things that they think are going well, things that they think that they would like to see different, things that they need assistance in. So we have a very open atmosphere there. If you guys have ever visited Adirondack Academy in the past, I welcome you to come visit it now, because I'm really proud of what we're doing.
Thank you.
So Jay, do you want to maybe wrap up this discussion? Perhaps you and I could comment along with Christine on the discussions that she's been a part of through the CSO advisory committee that oversees Adirondack Academy. I mean, this is the one where we invite our folks in to talk with the area superintendents, so that we've got kind of vertical and horizontal conversations occurring across the region, so that the chiefs truly understand what it is that's occurring in these programs when they're communicating with their directors, counselors, and principals. But I will say that Christine gave a similar report out to the chiefs recently, to that group, and it was a pretty lively conversation, but not lively in the sense of contentious, lively in the sense that there was some excitement about what's happening with the efforts being made to really engage and support the learning of our most difficult to engage students. And Christine made the comment about having, in addition to some support and management conversations about her students, that things are really shifting to also some more academic and strategic conversations around how to best support learning at Adirondack Academy, and that really has triggered some appreciation amongst the chiefs, I would say. Jay, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Dave. And the three areas of focus I think you've heard me talk about before: communications, relationships, and opportunities. Brian talked about the enhanced communications with our school districts, which has been greatly appreciated, about the performance of their students. The relationship piece, not only about their academics, but also their well-being. There's a huge emphasis on that. And of course, opportunities, not only opportunities for students, but Jean, your question is important. What are the opportunities for staff for their support as well? So there are structures in place, and there's a two-part process that has started this year, as Chris indicated, working with Dave Levitt. Dave is a former colleague of mine in CTE and alternative education for many years at Questar. He's working with the Southern Regional Education Board. That's what SREB is. And this year we're working on organizational structures, processes. Next year, as Chris referenced, it'll be about the instructional pieces with literacy across the content areas and getting more into the curriculum area. And as Chris noted, and I want to give Tara credit as well, a lot of credit with her coaches, and Kim's work with their staff has been integral in this transition. So there are quite a few supports, and that was an important question that you had, Jean. So again, great work, and I appreciate everything Chris and Brian have done.
I should have asked you, how many students are presently in the program?
We currently have 90 students in the program right now.
So thank you, Dave, for this opportunity.
Thank you.
This was a important conversation to have, and I want to go back just one more time to the conversations we have with the superintendents about this, having been one of our component superintendents just less than 2 years ago, and prior to that, being the principal of the largest high school in our region, it really is interesting to see how the conversation over the last 6 or 7 years is changing around alternative ed. You know, it's certainly disappointing, but it easily happens where sometimes when you have difficult to engage students, sometimes who are some of your more disruptive students, when they're placed in an external program like our alternative education program at Adirondack Academy, it becomes out of sight, out of mind, so to speak. And that's pretty sad commentary on what could happen to a student. What Christine, through this effort to engage the high school staffs with Brian and their counselors along with that, and then we're approaching it also from the chief's perspective in the CSO advisory meeting. We've really changed the dialogue about these students, and there's a real ownership of these kids, both here at Adirondack Academy, but in their home districts. And it's turned into a partnership to support their kids. There's some real interest there. And, you know, we had some conversations as leaders about maybe the disappointing stances that have been taken in the past, where you know you've got a kid that's difficult to engage or manage, and you know once they're out of your building, not that you forget about them, but you move on to other priorities. The students at Adirondack Academy now are continuing to be a priority in their district, and that's really important. So it wasn't an easy conversation to have with the superintendents, Christine, but they really appreciated it.
Thank you. I appreciate it too.
All right. So, Dr. Brooks, if you would like, I will turn things over to the deputy superintendent for her report, unless there are any more comments about the Adirondack Academy presentation.
No, we'd just like to thank these leaders who, for coming and sharing their progress with us. Some of us go back a long way and, you know, really saw the alternative school grow from, you know, its first beginnings when it was out in Broad Alban and on School Street. And we're really proud of the work that you're doing. So we encourage you to keep up the good work. And hopefully when we do get back where we can visit in person, you'll see some of us who can stop in and take a tour and see it up close in the near future, we hope. So thanks so much for what you do.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Lori, we're going to turn the program over to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. So I have two of our administrative coordinators here tonight, and we have some information from our school library system administrator, Christy Beeden. And I'm not sure if we took an opportunity to introduce Christy. She came in August a year ago, and then in March of that school year, the pandemic hit, and so Christy was trying to figure out her job, and she's done a lot of work, and she has been doing so many new different things with our districts and partnering. And I want to emphasize that word again as well, because there are great partnerships that Christy is fostering that are providing opportunities for our librarians and others in our entire region. So Christy, if you could speak for a few minutes about the last two partnering opportunities that we've had available, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's nice to see you. My name is Christy Beeden, and I'm delighted to be asked to speak with you. I'll just take a couple of minutes. So one of the positive things that has come out of this virtual world that we've all been thrust into is that during the closure, there was a lot more conversations going along between school library systems across the entire state. And one of them was I've gotten close to a lot of the different directors, and I've managed to foster a lot of collaborative opportunities. So one of them is working with 7 other Boces directors for school library systems we have put our thoughts, brains, and heads together and come up with some collaborative professional development opportunities. So this month in January, we've had two. We had one on the 13th, which was open not just to our librarians, but also for any of our teachers. It was Stephanie Cole Adams. She's a lawyer from New York, actually, and she specializes in providing legal services to libraries, museums, and educators across New York State. One of her more popular services is called Ask the Lawyer, which is pretty popular online in the education world. And we got her to talk to us, particularly to educators about copyright, because we're all very familiar with copyright in like the school setting. In the virtual setting, it becomes like a totally different animal. What is suddenly allowed or isn't allowed and stuff. And she kind of took questions from people in advance of it and answered questions that they put in the chat during the meeting. And she spent an hour and a half answering questions that educators all throughout all 8 Boces had. And, what can you download? What can't we download? What can you post? What can't you post? Can you record a book or can't you? And what's legal and what's not legal? Are we going to get into copyright trouble? Are those internet trolls looking for copyright violations or something? And so she laid it right out and gave a lot of really good information about how the Teach Act can help educators with the copyright and the 4 basic premises of the fair use. So that was one we had on January 13th, and we had 108 people participate in that professional learning. And then just this afternoon, we had a second one focused on engaging asynchronous lessons. Asynchronous lessons meaning students do their own work on their own time. Now, this could be in person in school if you're in a hybrid situation, or it could be remote at home when they're working where their parents might be there. And so the person who did this is an author of a book called Hybrid Teaching. Her name is Emma. She is an English language arts teacher and a certified Google trainer, and she actually comes from the state of Colorado. So she talked to 103 educators this afternoon, and she kept it as simple as the importance of having scheduling templates, particularly if you're dealing with hybrid classes. See some kids Monday, Tuesday, and the rest Thursday, Friday, and meanwhile still remote and everything. And she gave video tips and tricks to how to shorten videos that you might find on perhaps YouTube, used for instruction, so that you don't keep them too long, because then you lose students because they're part of the TikTok generation and they just can't focus on more than a couple minutes at a time. But also adding comprehension questions for accountability to make sure. 2 things is as simple as including tips for parents. We're not asking parents to grade the work, but before they submit it on Google Classroom, checklist. Did they answer questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or are they just turning it in and the questions are not answered, which is actually happening? And kids tell their parents, "Oh, look, I turned it in. See, it says I did." Well, they turned it in, but it was an incomplete work. So just little hints to let parents know that, this is what you could do to make sure your kid's doing their work at home or something. Anyway, so we had a number of districts participate in that also, along with some of our HFM, our own HFM people. So it was really nice to be able to collaborate with 7 other Boces and offer this opportunity to our component schools on 2 things that have become really important in this virtual world: copyright and what can you do online, and how to create an engaging asynchronous lesson for our students at home.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Christy. Before I turn over to the next portion, which is Tara Kiriko, any questions that Christy could answer? we are glad to have her as part of our administrative team, and she has been out when the real world was the real world and not the pandemic world. And I know Jay mentioned this with Brian and Chris, that wanting to have visits with the homeschools, and Christy spent some of her first part of her year last year out visiting the school districts and developing the relationship because she was new to the role. And Deb Booth had been with us for such a long time. They were so used to working with Deb, but Christy has developed those relationships and is sharing great information. So Christy, we appreciate your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Tara has been doing incredible work also. I spoke to you in September about the teaching in remote learning environments, the TRLE grant that the state received money for. And Tara and her coaches have just taken that, worked with the other Boces, and just run with it. And I'm excited that we're in the next phase. And I wanted Tara to be here with us tonight to talk to you about what that work is and how it will benefit the teachers and students in our region. So Tara, thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for having me tonight. I am home, so I apologize. I'm trying to keep it very quiet, but my mic is on now. So I know that you've already been made aware of the 6 buckets, but I'm just going to review them, and I'm going to read them so I don't forget one. One was shifting to online learning, engaging families as partners, meeting the needs of students with disabilities, meeting the needs of English language learners, integrating culturally responsive education, and integrating social emotional learning. So all of those are integrating them in the hybrid learning experience for students. And this was a grant put out by the U.S. Department of Education. New York State received part of this grant, and then it was divvied up. And all of the regional information centers, as well as the BOCES, have taken bits and pieces of it. So rather than one group do one, all of it, they split it up. And we are working with Wishwe Boces and Cap Region and Questar. And we have tackled mainly the shifting to teaching online piece and the social emotional piece. So what we've done is we've pulled our resources, we've collaborated on developing the workshops for teachers, and then we are presenting it in turnkey. So each group is going to present the turnkeys. All of the BOCES participate in the turnkeys. And then in turn, each BOCES is responsible to get the training out to their region. And it isn't a type of thing where you have to do it exactly as a different, so if we present our turnkey, not everybody has to do it exactly like we did it. People can look through it, pull out what's important, and what really would have the biggest impact in their region. So the first one that we participated in was the students with disabilities, and we will have that ready to put in our catalog for our region by the end of this month. And then as each turnkey happens, we will in turn present to our districts. The positive thing that we've learned from this, so much of it is stuff that we've already incorporated in our catalog and that we've been presenting and supporting teachers with since this happened in March. So that's, that's sort of reassuring that we have been on the right page and doing the right thing for all along. This does incorporate a little bit more for the parents, which is nice as well. But I don't know if there's any questions about it. It's a great opportunity, and because it was a grant, it's been very fast paced, and we have it ready to turn around very, very quickly. And I apologize for the dog because, like I said, that would happen. So I don't have any questions. I'm going to mute while I wait.
So just to reinforce what what Tara and her team and partners in the other BOCES have been working on. The federal government provided this pot of money for New York and other states to improve the quality of instruction in a remote environment. And what New York did was they divided up the work. You had to apply to be one of the partners that were developing the resources and the delivery of technical assistance. So we partnered with some of our neighbors. Tara was a little humble, I guess, in saying that every BOCES in the state is doing it. Everyone did not step up to the plate for this. We did with our partners and with our neighbors here, but remember, there are 37 BOCES in the state, and you know, if all were partnerships and some of them were just standalone for some of this work, you know, with only 6 of them, that only would make 24 or so. So there are some that didn't do the work, but we've got a very strong relationship with the BOCES that neighbor us, and certainly this has been you know, with the remote setting, not just that we're teaching in, but that we are learning and working in. Tara and her team have been working with some partners from Cap Region, Questar, and Wishpee.
So Dave, I would agree.
The resources will be available to the whole state. Go ahead, Lori.
No, that's okay. I was going to say you were spot on when you said I think Tara was being a little humble there, because while this was a grant and the pace was quick, there were deadlines that had to be met, and there was a real quick turnaround. So Tara and all of the coaches in her program, they have been on this working with the other BOCES, and it's just been a really quick turnaround. But I think I'm confident that what is going to be shared throughout the state and all of the other regions, the resources that will be available for teachers and then will benefit the students, is very exciting work. We're going to be in this remote environment for a tad longer, I'm thinking. So Tara, thank you very much for being here. And if I may take one more minute for a little news blip. So tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, is Data Privacy Day. So I don't know if you listen to the news in the morning and they always tell you what day it is. You know, sometimes it's Cheesecake Day and sometimes it's Chocolate Day. I don't know if they're going to report that tomorrow's Data Privacy Day, but we received a notice from the state yesterday that tomorrow, the 28th, and it's just a reminder, and I'll talk with Craig about getting something up on the website, that to make sure that we take responsibility for protecting our personal information at home and also through work for our children and our staff, which is so important. And you know, I've talked to you a lot over the last 8 months or so about Ed Law 2D and all the data privacy requirements. So mark that in your calendar, tomorrow's Data Privacy Day. So I appreciate the time that you gave us tonight to share our 2 of our programs that are doing outstanding work. So thank you very much.
So I think I understand that the work that Tara has been doing really kind of emerges out of the immediacy of the need to be remote and to work in virtual spaces. But I'm also thinking of the opportunity that we've been able to learn at this time related to new and different ways of teaching and reaching children and families. And I'm hoping that the work that's being done to address the pandemic and the new ways that we're teaching in pandemic is really captured and leveraged as we come back to, you know, what will be a more normal, what we think of as a more normal school setting. I think that we've really been able to tap into some opportunities where maybe children learn in different ways remotely. We might be able to find ways to kind of revision what homework or, you know, work at home might mean in a regular school setting. I think we've made some connections with parents as they were really forced to become partners as parent teachers at home. And I'm hoping that, you know, as we move forward and we, you know, things return to the school that we kind of dream that we're going to get back to, that all of this work is really just leveraged and brought forward so that it can be, you know, another tool that, you know, isn't just held for the next pandemic, but becomes part of the kind of the new operating process that we might have as educators. So I'm hoping that the committees and the work that Tara does is not really just sunsetted, you know, as we return to in-school learning, but becomes another, I think, very valuable way of reaching families and supporting kids. So are you guys hearing me at all?
Yes, we hear you.
That's good. I didn't want.
We agree. We agree with you, Dr. Brooks.
Didn't want to go through all that again. I was sweating bullets that I was on mute.
No, we agree with you completely, and you'll be happy to know it's part of the constant discussion that's going on. So yes, we know that this has to change the way, this will probably change the way education looks moving forward. So, and the same goes for how we provide professional development for teachers and how much it's impacted that, and how that has to change as well as we continue to meet the needs of our students and teachers. So agree completely.
Great.
So thank you.
Thanks for all your work. Lori, do you have anything else for your report?
Well, I'm just going to go back to that data privacy day. So if any of you are using 1234 as your password, you should probably change that. So other than that, Dr. Brooks, thank you very much. I am finished for this board meeting. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Tara.
Yeah, thank you both. Dave, you're up next.
Okay, so I didn't feel it was necessary to project just a couple bullets for Jay and Lori, and then to take them off so that everyone could see the speakers. But for me, I do have some information on slides that I would share. Let me just get through those two of them, and we come to our report. And just with some of the work that's been occurring at the state level and discussions that we had at our DS meeting this week, and subsequently with some of our chiefs here, I want to do a very just brief reminder of the role of the Boces, the importance that we played during this pandemic, and my role as district superintendent. It won't take long to do that. The bulk of my discussion is going to be around the executive budget proposal that came out last week, to much fanfare and initial indications that there was going to be some new money flowing to the state. But as you peel back the layers of the onion on that budget, there are some things that are somewhat disturbing in the governor's proposal. And again, it's just a proposal, but it's something to be mindful of as we work with our component districts to support them to deliver the best budget they can that supports their students. And then I wanted to talk just a bit about our collective advocacy efforts in the region. So this is, I know, review for this group, but sometimes just reviewing what we already know, much like putting partner, advocate, leader at the top of our slides, is helpful just to keep us on track. And as a review, there are three primary roles for the Boces in New York State. That is that of an educator, with the 37 Boces having every school except for 4 in the state, other than the big 5 urban districts, are members of Boces. And Boces lead and initiate collaborations between their districts that prepare students for their futures, and identifies gaps and supports efforts to close those gaps. Boces as a facilitator, I really like that as I put this slide together and then noticed at the top our tagline of partner, advocate, and leader. I really think we've captured what it is we're supposed to be doing. But Boces provide educational programs through interdistrict, almost like an intermunicipal agreement scenario that our individual schools either do not provide themselves or don't provide in the most effective or efficient manner. And Boces of New York is also considered an engine for economic growth, and that centers around what you heard about at last month's meeting with the work that our CTE programs do. We work to ensure our kids are prepared to enter the next phases of their lives, and we also support adults who are returning to us to kind of reset where they are and better prepare them for either higher ed or work settings. And let's see, well, that's an awkward slide, but we can get through that the way I did the transition. But why do districts participate in the Boces? You know, the way it works, and we know this, but the local school district selects the services they desire for a given school year, and the following year, a portion of this cost is returned to the district in the form of Boces aid, and that aid is based on a formula that takes into account a district's financial resources. Boces aid is aid for school districts, frankly, who can't afford to provide critical programs to their students, to their communities on their own. And it really is, when we speak so much about equity in this day and age, Boces aid is a lever to equity. And ultimately, money that is not spent in a COSER arrangement is returned to districts by the Boces. And my role and the role of the other 36 superintendents is to serve as the CEO and the leader of the local supervisory district, but also I serve, and so do my colleagues, as the field representative of the Department of Education and the commissioner, with the language that is in the descriptor is to provide forceful leadership as the commissioner's representative, and also serve as that conduit for two-way communication between SED and LEAs. Lori actually, as I've discussed this with her over the last month or so, has said you've got really two roles. There is the information you provide in a two-way manner, and also the oversight and the authority that you have over the region on behalf of the commissioner and the department. So I just think sometimes it's good to reset and understand what it is our role and what it is we're attempting to accomplish. I think the mission that we designed last year certainly is very consistent with these ideas. I used the Boces of New York handbook to gather the information that I've put here. So I think we've done a good job, and I also think by emphasizing every day that we want to be a valued partner, advocate, and leader for the students and school communities in our region is a good place for us to start every day as we perform the work that we do on behalf of our component districts. So that moves us to the executive budget proposal. And I wanted to just talk about a couple of things. If you would notice in the executive budget, there was a discussion that there was more money, that we have some federal money with the second round of the federal stimulus money that was targeted to education. And it appeared $6 billion was infused into the education arena in New York for 21-22. But I caution folks, there is not a $6 billion increase in aid to our school districts. You know, the first item I'd like to point to, I think we all know, the STAR tax relief program that's been in existence in New York State, probably for about 20 years, I think, at least. But STAR, I use the term there, bucket, if we think of where revenue comes from. STAR has never been listed on the school aid runs in the past. The executive has chosen to include the STAR monies that are returned to districts as tax relief and returned to taxpayers as tax relief, and to districts as a part of this year's state aid proposal. the runs. And they've counted that as money when they're making the comparison to the previous year's aid run. And this is where I say it's the mixing of the buckets. And it gets a little even worse for component schools when you look there, because in the aid runs, there is something that is then referred to as local district funding adjustment. And in some cases, it's actually equal to the amount of money that is listed for STAR. In other cases, it's approaching that depending on the individual district. So this is a case of some money being added into the budget that typically districts were counting on in another area, in another bucket of revenue, is now being placed into this aid category, and then it's being backed out with this local adjustment. So it's something that, again, this is not set in stone. We know there are negotiations every year between the governor's team and the legislature on what the final budget ultimately includes. And this will be a high priority area that we will focus on as we continue to talk to our local legislators, and as the Educational Conference Board, which is comprised of the advocacy groups that support school administrators, superintendents, the School Boards Association, NYSU. They will be, I can assure you, they will be lobbying on our behalf regarding backing STAR back out and putting it back in its rightful place, in its rightful bucket, because it's almost like a double whammy, because it was money we've taken away from one area and put it in another, but now you're taking it away from that one too. So it's just something to watch. It will be something that we prominently display for our legislative partners when we talk to them. We've already started discussions, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes, about the advocacy discussions we've had so far with Senator Tedisco and Assemblyman Smullen, and there are more scheduled with Senator Hinchy and Assemblyman Santa Barbara, that the superintendents as a group are having conversations with those folks. Then another one, and this isn't a new proposal. I think I talked with you about this last year. Anita probably talked to you about it the year before, and Pat probably talked to you about it the year before that. This governor has advocated for consolidating what we refer to as expense-based aids. It was proposed last year, it was removed. It's been removed whenever it's been proposed. The first sub-bullet there lists the 11 aid categories. So expense-based aids are where you spend money in anticipation of receiving reimbursement the following year. It allows for kind of a smoothness in your planning for local school districts when they develop their budgets. The idea where they can be strategic in how they leverage expense-based aids to improve the educational product they deliver in their district, because they have finite resources. So they decide to collaborate with their neighboring districts and their Boces and can deliver programs that they can't do on their own. Well, the executive proposal this year takes 11 of those expense-based aids. Really, the important one that was left out was building aid. Last year, we actually had building aid rolled in here. But this year's executive proposal calls for $3.3 billion in services aid. If you were to take those same 11 categories and compare this budget to last year's budget, it's $393 million less than was provided in 2021. And there is a different formula to calculate this, and the formula is much more arbitrary or even adjustable from year to year than the present law, the current law, for how we would determine aid in these categories. So these 11 categories really are areas where the highest reimbursement ratios go to those school districts in the most difficult financial situations. So this truly is kind of a progressive tax manner. If you think about it, it's where those that can't afford it, but we want to educate and give kids the opportunities that they need to be successful. Expense-based aid is a good way to achieve that. And there's the Boces aid piece is one area, and hardware and technology certainly, excess cost and enhancement. But look at transportation. In rural areas, transportation is really, in a lot of ways, the starting point for the foundation for how we educate students, because we need to get them to where they're going to learn. So most of the districts in our region have very high reimbursement ratios. I can tell you the district that I was the superintendent of operated at a 90% reimbursement for transportation. And there are many others in our region that do. So essentially what that means, what you spend on transportation in a given year, you receive 90% of that the following year. If they start constricting that, they start constricting rural districts' ability to transport students, and it's certainly going to have an impact on opportunities. So the idea with that last bullet is these aid streams allow things to be predictable. Predictable in the sense that we are going to plan to spend X amount of dollars here. We anticipate receiving Y number of dollars back in the following year, and we balance out our revenue stream that way. This block grant, where you don't know what to expect from year to year, particularly when they've reduced the amounts that are going to go to schools, could have a very harmful effect on schools in high need categories, high need resource categories like the ones that we have here in the HFM Boces. So a little balky. And lastly, if you go back to, I think everyone remembers the term gap elimination adjustment, which was a response to the financial peril of the 2008 mortgage collapse. Took a few years as things progressed, when there was some federal stimulus money to help districts through the crisis. When that money goes away, it's a financial cliff. And what's happened this year with this money that has been infused into the budget, it is one-time money. And to say this is a one-time budget process is somewhat irresponsible, because the issue is it may look a little rosier in 21-22, but unless a similar source comes to replace that money for 22-23, you're starting at a deficit for whatever the increase was here if it disappears or isn't recurring. So this is one-time money, yet the expectation is districts are going to have to support the recurring costs that they have. So that, to a certain degree, is what we're talking about with the stimulus. And I wanted to show you, if I can, an illustration of what I mean that our districts are facing with this services aid consolidation. So that looks to be probably big enough to see. So this is the idea, or what we're looking at here is the monies associated with the 11 categories that the governor has proposed be combined. And this is data that was collected in a very user-friendly format by the New York State Council of School Superintendents on their website. I harvested the data from there. So for these 11 aid categories, you can just use Amsterdam as at the top. In 2021, that factored into $7,835,000 in aid. This looks pretty good here. Amsterdam can anticipate in these same 11 categories $342,000 more this year. But if the formula remained what it was last year, they'd be looking actually at $619,000 more. And in every case, there aren't any schools who are receiving more when you compare last year's or the current law formula to the formula that they're instituting. I asked the question about these districts that we have where it appears that this year's new services aid formula runs parallel to last year's. And the explanation that I received was there's only so much they can cut with the federal stimulus money. So they couldn't harm the districts any further because in the case of Broad Almond Perth, Edinburgh, Fonda Fultonville, Lake Pleasant, and Wells, they'd already met that threshold with the star reduction they received that I talked to you about previously. So this is far from over, but when the executive budget was released, it was celebrated as this influx of aid. It is not. The rules are changing in a way that will injure districts because remember, they spent this money in anticipation of achieving this reimbursement through these different categories, and they've taken STAR, which is typically a separate consideration for revenue, and placed it alongside traditional state aid. And I'm looking around on the screen, and I've got a veteran board member from a component district here nodding and saying, I think I get it. So I don't know if there's a lot of discussion that you'd want to have around this. I did this to set the stage for, I want to talk to you a little bit about the legislative advocacy that we're going to engage in. But any questions or comments about the executive? And again, I emphasize proposal. It's January 27th. We've got time. We need to use the time wisely. We need to speak up for the schools in this region, and we intend to. But any questions or comments? So I mentioned our legislative advocacy agenda. Previously have spoken about that agenda with you and sent it to you. And Craig Clark has done a nice job of creating a one-page document that we can use as talking points. And we have, in fact, used as talking points already with a meeting last week with the superintendents who are represented by Assemblyman Smallin and Senator Tedisco, really our northern districts is what I talked about that. So we were on the phone for about an hour with the two representatives, but it was prior to the release of the budget. And these really were the three talking points that we had. We need to talk about the increased costs to schools associated with the pandemic. We spent a great deal of time emphasizing the idea of protecting these expense-based categories: transportation aid, Boces aid, high-cost special education aid. And it seemed to really, these were two pretty sharp representatives. These were not new discussions to them. And we also talked about the tax cap formula and some of the pieces in the tax cap formula that could use examining. We all know that Johnstown School District was faced with a negative tax cap a couple of years ago. And, there's an 8-step process to determine what your tax cap factor actually is. And looking at that and making some adjustments there was something that we talked about. Not sure that is going to get a lot of traction this year. I think there's a lot of other pretty noisy things going on in the budget, and we now feel like we need to make an addition and talk about the importance of separating STAR and putting it back where it belongs, those STAR reimbursements, to districts, so that we don't have school districts starting behind the 8 ball when everyone feels like they've got more money, when in fact they're getting less money as a result of all this. So Craig certainly has our advocacy document saved. We have another session scheduled with the Montgomery County state legislative representatives, and I think we'll see an adjusted message to them, and we will also follow up with the two representatives that we've already met with, and really focus on this idea of let's give our schools a chance to recover and then sustain what was in place prior to this what's turned into really a disaster for us. So we're working at this, and we will continue, and that concludes my report unless there are any questions.
Do we have any questions for Dave before we dive into the regular business of the meeting? Okay, thanks, Dave. Moving on to the personnel items, it is the board's practice to act on personnel items as a consent agenda. And so I would look for a recommendation to accept the recommendations of the superintendent regarding personnel items A through G as presented in the board agenda.
So move.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments about any of the personnel items? All those in favor of adopting those recommendations as proposed, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, those items are approved. The next item on the agenda is one that I would prefer not to have to read, but it is recommended that the board accept with regret the resignation for retirement of Dr. Lorraine Hohenforst, Deputy Superintendent, effective August 31, 2021. The board recognizes and appreciates Dr. Lorraine Hohenforst's more than 32 years of exemplary service to the Boces. May I have a motion to accept, please?
I move.
Do we have a second?
Regretfully, yes.
Okay, John? Anyone have any comments or questions before we act sadly on this agenda item?
That's moved with regret.
It is with regret.
Exactly.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? That motion carries. I did speak with Dave, and Lori's last board meeting with us, according to this timeline, will be the August board meeting. We're planning to dedicate that meeting to Lori and to be able to honor her 32 years of tremendous service in an appropriate way. So we will have a chance to express our gratitude to Lori in that August board meeting. We're planning to modify the agenda so that we can adequately say thank you to everything that Lori's done. Moving on, The first item of new business is the claim auditor's report. It's recommended that the board approve the claim auditor's report for the periods of November 24th, 2020 through December 22, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
So
Make the
moved.
motion.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any comments or questions for regarding the claim auditor's report? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. The next item is the treasurer's report, and it is recommended that the board accept the treasurer's report for the periods of October 1, 2020 through October 31, 2020, and for November 1st, 2020 through November 30, 2020, and finally through December 1, 2020 through December 31, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
I move.
Second.
Jim, John, any questions for Kathy on the treasurer's report? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. The next item is the extra class reports, and it is recommended that the board approve the November and December 2020 extra class reports as submitted. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
John, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Alan, do we have any questions regarding the extra class reports? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The next item are items declared for salvage. It's recommended that the board approve the items for salvage as listed in the Chief Financial Officer's memorandum dated January 5, 2021. Do we have a motion, please?
Moved.
Gus? We have a second?
Second.
Jim? Anyone have any questions on any of the items being declared? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The next item has to do with grant approvals. It's recommended that the board accept the following grant funds and authorize their suitable appropriation and expenditure pursuant to the State Education Department and/or local approval. And those are for five Title II grants. All those, do we have a motion? Oh,
Make
yeah.
the motion.
Do we have a motion? Okay. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Okay. Any questions regarding the grant proposals? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. The next item has to do with a credit card summary for the district superintendent. It's recommended that the board accept the district superintendent's credit card summary for the period of October 1, 2020 through December 31, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Make.
Okay.
Second.
And second. Any questions on the expenditures on the credit card proposal? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Now is a credit card approval for the district superintendent and the chief financial officer. It is recommended that the board accept the district superintendent and chief financial officer's credit card summary for the time period of October 1, 2020 through December 31, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Gus?
Move.
And a second? Maybe.
Second. I'll second.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Do we have any questions regarding this credit card approval? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item it is recommended that the board authorize the district superintendent to execute the agreement by and between HFM Boces and Boucher and Clark Benefits Incorporated to perform tracking and reporting services pursuant to the Affordable Care Act for the HFM Boces for the period of July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021. A motion, please.
Make the
I
motion.
move.
Okay, Alan, and did we get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. Any questions on this proposal? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? The motion carries. We now have an item regarding donations totaling $500 to the PTEC Thanksgiving program. It's recommended that the board accept donations totaling $500 to support the PTEC Thanksgiving celebration from the individuals listed below. And in your agenda, you will notice the name and the amounts of those. May I have a motion to accept these donations?
I'll move that.
John, and can
A
we have a
second.
second from Jim? All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, any questions on that? It's a little filtered on this WebEx thing. Okay, so we've already voted. All those in favor have said aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, that one passes. The next item on the agenda is recommended that we adopt the following resolution designating the sources listed below to be the sole source providers of equipment, products, or services required by the Hamilton, Fulton, Montgomery Boces. And you may have read that resolution, but would you like me to forego reading it, or anyone want me to read that?
You can forego reading that.
Okay, so assuming anyone saw the resolution, I would look for a motion to approve that.
I move.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, John. And anyone have any questions on it? Then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then the motion carries. The next item has to do with a contract, and it's recommended that the board authorize the district superintendent to execute the school front contract and licensing agreement by and between HFM Boces and School Front LLC to use one or more modules of School Front. Actually, that should be SCH Front. Is the name of the company. May I have a motion to approve that one, please?
I'll move that.
John, and that second?
Second.
Jim? Anyone have any questions? I know Aaron's here and he's worked on this. But anyone have any questions on School Front and what it might do for us, or are we good? Okay, there being no questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. The next item is recommended that the board authorize the district superintendent to execute the supplemental staffing agreement by and between the HFM Boces and the Nurse Connection Staffing Incorporated to provide supplemental staffing to provide certain COVID-19 screenings of clients, employees, and students on an as-needed basis. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Okay. And a second, please? Okay. Anyone have any questions regarding this agreement? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. Next, it's recommended that the board endorse the 2021 administrative budget in the amount of $1,835,079 without retiree and dental expenses. This includes a 3.8 increase over the 2021 budget of $1,768,155. The administrative budget will be reviewed with the component boards of education at the April 14, 2021 annual meeting and is subject to public vote by said districts on April 28th, 2021. May I have a motion to approve the administrative budget, please?
I move.
Okay, and a second, please?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any questions, or Dave, do you want to make any comments before we move?
Just a challenging process for Kathy to put together things. I mean, right off the bat, when you're looking at contractual increases, and then when we're trying to also ensure that we are increasing the quality of the work that we do. Different portions of different expenditures are included in the administrative budget, and it's wrangling with a bear to try to keep it within a certain goal. I give Kathy a lot of credit for that.
Here, here.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor of approving the 21-22 administrative budget, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. The last item under this business section is pursuant to the competitive bidding process, it is recommended that the board accept the request for proposal extension and the revised RFB recommendations as noted by the memoranda from the purchasing official in the following areas. And those areas are scoring and test analysis, food services from Ginsberg Foods, and 2 items, U.S. Foods, meat and dairy, groceries, and another grocery. May I have a motion to accept that recommendation?
I move.
Okay, and a second, please.
I'll second.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Kathy on any of these extensions? Okay, then all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to other business, we have the approval of 3 policies. These are intended for second reading and adoption tonight. It's recommended that the board accept the following policies as second reading and adopt them in this meeting. Policy number 1101, records management. Policy number 5305, protection of student, teacher, and principal personnel information, data security, and privacy. And policy 7102, student medications. May I have a motion to approve and adopt, please?
I'll move that.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any questions, comments, or changes for any of these policies? I do have one. Last month on first reading, I had recommended in policy 1101, records management, that we amend it and we remove the name of Dr. Hohenforst and create it as a generic. I'm recommending tonight that we replace the name of Dr. Hohenforst, thereby negating her ability to retire.
I'm all for it.
So, anyway, all those in favor of approving the policies as they exist for second reading and adoption, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say no. That motion carries. We've now come to the time where individual board members have time to make reports or make comments. Is there anyone who has anything to add to the meeting before we move on to the next item? Okay. So the last piece is the announcement of upcoming meetings, and our next regular meeting is going to be on February 24th at 5 p.m. So, Alan, we've come to your part of the meeting.
I make the recommendation, meeting be adjourned.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That concludes our meeting. So I hope everybody has a great month, and we look forward to seeing you all next month. Stay safe.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Yes, take care. Wash your hands.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You're gonna have to,